let's see what it's about. I ain't gonna lie. I am a part of sports media, I feel like, to a certain degree. So.
In the history of ESPN.
Disney once again laying people off, this time folks on TV on ESPN, the anchors getting the axe.
20 plus people laid off.
Everybody's on the chopping block.
They're looking to save money everywhere they can, and so yeah, a lot of big names.
Blindsiding a 17-year employee.
I will remind everybody they're casualties of a layoff because ESPN lost by $5.5 billion.
More recognizable faces are now going to be in independent spaces. Pat McAfee, etc., can go direct to consumer.
The way the industry is moving, I don't know if quality is what's going to keep people around anyway.
This show is more entertaining than anything on ESPN.
This is where we are at as an industry. It's saddening, and the turn we are taking is for the worse.
Hey, I ain't gonna lie, this gonna be a fire video. I will say that. I feel like I got a lot to say on this topic. Me being, basketball guy. Me being Mr. Social Packet. Yeah, no, this gonna be a fire video, man. I ain't gonna lie. This gonna be a fire video.
We are now firmly in an era where individual personal brands...
Is he sweating? I don't want to make fun of him. I'm just... Okay.
In sports media are king, and they supersede pretty much everything else, including the corporate brands of the networks that employ those people. If you look at everything that's happened at ESPN over the last month or so, with signing Pat McAfee to a mega deal, which he left an even bigger deal with FanDuel to take that deal with ESPN, and you kind of overlay that with the unfortunate layoffs that happened at the same time, and it can kind of feel weird, seeing the dichotomy of a whole bunch of talent get let go while at the same time they sign one talent for a lot of money. And I understand where those mixed feelings come from and why there's a lot of confusion about the state of sports media. And as somebody who used to work in sports TV for a long time, I was in the trenches as a PA at NFL Network, cutting highlights, being in the control room for NFL Red Zone, doing graphics on Red Zone for years, working on
It's so funny to me, and there's a beauty to it, but it's also kind of fucked because a lot of jobs are being obsolete because of it. But in terms of these talk shows, I understand great production value. It's TV, it's network TV, X, Y, and Z. But as a viewer, I ain't watching for the production value. I'm here for sports talk. I'm here for the meat and potatoes. I'm here for the discussion. And I feel like what a lot of sports content creators have really captured is just that bottom line. I think, shout out to Player's Choice. Player's Choice is a perfect example of this. When you look at their production value, and I'm not dissing them because we have the same exact production value at Let's Keep It a Buck. Okay, we use StreamYard. Okay? We use StreamYard. We don't have all these fancy lightings. It's just a link. It's essentially a glorified Zoom call. Okay? And it's just about the discussion. It's just about the debate. It's just about the clips, et cetera, et cetera. And as a consumer and as the creator, to me, that's a great thing. The fact that I don't need all these production equipment, these employees to make a show to talk about sports, I think it's a beauty to it. But on the flip side of that, and it's kind of like the conversation with AI, low key, it's making a lot of jobs obsolete. You don't need a technical producer to run OBS or some shit. It's really not that hard on StreamYard. You know what I'm saying? Even just having like a topics guy for most of these shows, they don't got a topics guy. Hit live and talk shit. You know what I'm saying? So, it's interesting.
Virtually every single show that existed at that network at some point in time, and also at the same time doing local sports media at Time Warner Sportsnet, which was later Spectrum Sportsnet, doing like Lakers coverage, Dodgers coverage, Galaxy, CONCACAF, all that kind of stuff. Even going back to my time in high school, like I started doing field cam work when I was 16. I started doing technical directing and directing when I was 17. So like I spent a lot of my life in sports TV. And then I left all of that to do YouTube for also almost a decade at this point. So I've been on both sides of the fence here. I have watched this transition happen, literally even to myself. So I feel like I'm in a unique position to kind of comment on the state of sports media and maybe give a little bit of context of what's actually happening at ESPN, or at least what I think is happening at ESPN. First things first, I do want to express as much empathy as I possibly can for everybody that did unfortunately recently get let go at ESPN. It was, I think it was 20 total on-air talent got let go. A lot of them, yes, were in very expensive contracts. They were making great money, and I kind of don't think that matters. And my buddy Brandon Perna made a great point when he did his video about this topic, that for a lot of the folks that were on-air talent at ESPN that were not former professional athletes themselves, being on air at ESPN is literally their dream job. Like, that is the pinnacle of the profession. That is what you work for, is to be an on-air talent at ESPN. And they had that. And unfortunately, they got let go. And so these are people that literally, in many cases, lost their dream job. And regardless of the dollar amount of their contract, I think that it just sucks, right? Like, nobody wants to go through that. And so I empathize with that, because it's a very hard thing to have everything you wanted and then have it slip through your fingers. So
I got a take on this as well. I don't know if I should. I'll say it right now, because I made a tweet about it the other day. What these layoffs have showed me, what everything I'm seeing, with not even just within the sports industry, but with the writer's strike, with shit that I've seen firsthand, trying to get a salary job in the creative field is not sustainable. It's not. I'm sorry. It's not. It's not. For a majority of people trying to attempt to get into this field, it's not. A Stephen A. Smith, who is on air and has been doing this for a career for 20 plus years, is a 0.001% scenario. It just is. Skip Bayless is a 0.0001% scenario. You know what I'm saying? Mike Wilbon is a 0.001% scenario. But for a majority of these people within creative industries, and let me take it to another industry, within Hollywood, landing a role like Olivia Benson, where you're going to play this one act for 20 years straight and your shit is just, that's all you're going to be doing, is a 0.001% scenario. A majority of these jobs are gig-based. A majority of these jobs are jobs that you're locked in for 1 to 2 years, and depending on how you perform, we'll see if you fucking move on. And I say that to say, I feel like the best security, I know you can low-key say this about any other industry, but I think specifically within an industry that is so gig-based, that is so based on contractual work, on 1099 work, the best job security within the creative industry, within the entertainment industry, is ownership. Because the unfortunate thing about landing a job at ESPN, even though when you get there, it's going to be probably a great experience. It's your dream job. You know what I'm saying? You achieved your dreams, you're making good money. On these cases where you get fired, it is so hard to find a replacement that fulfills and achieves the lifestyle that you already set when you were working at ESPN. I said this when Cankles was on Let's Keep It a Buck, and we was talking about his career as an editor, and I brought up this example. I said being an editor, working as an employee for other YouTubers is not a career. It is not sustainable. Because number one, a lot of these jobs, quite frankly, there are no contracts involved. Number two, motherfuckers don't really get benefits for real. Right? And number three, they're very hard to replace as the worker. So if I work for Mr. Beast and he has put it out in the public, I personally know firsthand how much he pays his employees. If you get a job at Mr. Beast as a thumbnail designer and you're getting paid $150K a year, that's cool, that's fine, that's a great job, right? You're getting paid $150K a year, that sounds crazy. But if you get laid off, just think about it. How many other YouTubers, now that you're used to that $150K lifestyle, now that you think this is your job, this is going to be your career path, and you invested all of your things into this thing, how many other fucking YouTubers are going to be able to offer you $150K a year? Let alone, not even $150K. Let's lower the bar. $80K. How many other YouTubers are going to be able to offer you $80,000 a year to make thumbnails? Newsflash, it's a handful. And within those handful, you got to check if, number one, they're hiring. And then if even if they are hiring, are they going to fucking accept you? I don't know. You don't know. And that's the thing when it comes to ownership, when it comes to the entertainment industry. If you have ownership, there is going to be a lot of self-accountability to you because you own shit. And it is a easier said than done type of thing. But if you got ownership, you control your destiny. In an industry that is so fluctuating. Instead of the dude being cut off in these scenarios, you're going to be the Pat McAfee that ESPN hits up so that you go on their platform. And I think that's a drastic difference. That's a drastic difference. You have leverage in these conversations. But let me play the video because I don't want to, it's a long ass video.
I want to express empathy first and foremost for those people, but I also want to explain the network perspective on why those layoffs were probably necessary from Disney's perspective. I do not believe that Disney would have made those cuts unless they absolutely had to, because typically, at least in this business, if a contract is not generating the revenue that they need in order to pay for that contract, they're just going to let it expire, right? But these were outright layoffs. They were ending these contracts early. And I don't think they would have done that if Disney Plus was not losing literally $1.5 billion a year. Like, Disney Plus has been a disaster for them financially for a lot of reasons. And there's a whole bunch of videos on YouTube that kind of dive in.
Hey, chat, let me know when was the last time y'all watched Disney Plus. Because, and this is crazy because me and my girl deadass had a conversation about it. Yo, we got to end Disney Plus after this year because we bought the annual bundle type shit. I have not watched Disney Plus until those Marvel shows really like were at their peak. Like when Loki, WandaVision, and the last time I was fully invested into Marvel TV shows was probably Moon Knight. Everything after that, I'm like, all right, bro, this is too much. I'm not into Star Wars. I'm too grown to be watching fucking Little Mermaid and Lion King. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, no, that's tough right there.
Into why Disney Plus has failed, but that has had an impact on the entire company as a whole. And so in order to make ESPN profitable, there's really only two paths they can take. The first path is obviously, hiring talent that they think is going to bring in enough eyeballs to generate ad dollars so they can be profitable. And the second path is cutting expenses, which means cutting talent that they do not believe is bringing in enough eyeballs to generate enough ad dollars to pay for those salaries. And I do want to make a point here that these are two separate paths and two separate decisions. They're not necessarily linked together. There's not some salary cap that Disney has to adhere to where, we have to cut all these contracts so that we can bring in Pat McAfee. It's really more like we're bringing in Pat McAfee because we need somebody that can generate eyeballs and get money injected into this company again through advertising. And at the same time, unfortunately, we need to get rid of contracts that we do not believe are bringing in revenue. Hence the layoffs.
It's so interesting because Stephen A. also said in his video that honestly, this shit has nothing to do with ESPN. Like, the layoffs, even though ESPN is the one directly being affected, This shit has nothing to do with ESPN. This really has something to do with I think he mentioned specifically like whatchamacallit, like IRL sales and merchandise sales and shit like that. But that's what happens when you're a part of a larger corporation. You know what I'm saying? And also, I think it's important to understand that a lot of these big ass corporations, they invest into passion projects. Some low risk, high reward shit, but they are cutthroat when it comes to cutting off these people if they don't end up generating money. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can only name the amount of I'll name a perfect one right now. Threads. Facebook / Meta launched Threads literally 2 weeks ago. Apparently, they already lost like half of the user base that they got from like that initial resurgence. And I'm gonna keep it a bean. After the first 2 days, I have not been on Threads. I don't plan being back on Threads. Shit is just boring. Everything I do on there, I can do on Twitter. But yeah, people were hired to work on that project. People were given contracts to work on that project. For those people, that's their livelihood. That's how they make, that's how they make a living. But for Meta, in actuality, this was just an experimental project. This was let's test the waters, see what the fuck is going on. If it hits, it hits. If it doesn't, hey, failed project, let's move on. It's unfortunate as the employee, but that's what I'm talking about when it comes to ownership. When you have ownership, essentially you're just on the other side of the fence. It's a cutthroat. That's the thing, chat. It's a cutthroat fucking industry. It's such a kill or be, and ultimately is capitalism working its magic, but it's such a kill or be killed fucking industry. And I know Average is in the chat, and I seen you, Average, but I'll say this to you straight up. Do not plan on being the editor of Let's Keep It a Buck forever. It's just not sustainable. So I really like how, number one, you're not working with just us. You're not just banking on Let's Keep It a Buck. But number two, I'm gonna tell you right now, again, if you want to make being a creator and being an editor a long-lasting fucking career for you, you gotta leverage that shit to make something that you own. And I'm a pivot it again to my own situation. Like, Average, we're not firing type shit. But I'm a pivot it to my fucking situation. For those who don't know, I work for Playback. I do titles and thumbnails for Playback. And if this is a surprise to Playback, it's a surprise to Playback. But I do not plan working for Playback for the next 10 or 15 years. That's just not sustainable. That's just not sustainable in my opinion. Because shit could end any second. You know what I'm saying? But
these people that got laid off, I don't think that they would have got laid off if Disney felt that they were a plus on the balance sheet. As callous as that sounds, they need to make money. They need to be profitable because Disney Plus is just an anchor on the entire Disney business, globally. Disney Plus is dragging everything down. So ESPN has to make money, and I think that those are the two paths that they're taking simultaneously. Now, for everyone else that is still at ESPN or FS1 or NBC or print media or any other outlet, right? Anybody that's in sports media, and I know a lot of them are probably going to watch this because I know many of them all across these different outlets, so I'm sure a lot of them are gonna see this video at some point.
So you connected for.
If you're watching this and you're in the industry, I want you to be aware of where sports media is right now from a consumer perspective. Let's talk about what actually works in modern sports media and why a lot of legacy outlets are now having to play catch up with new media like YouTube and TikTok and Instagram and all the hundreds of creators that are slowly but surely ripping eyeballs away from those networks. With the rise of all these different social media platforms, sports fans now have more options than ever for where they consume their sports content. Yes, they could turn on a debate show in the morning while they're getting ready for work, which, let's be honest, that format now is basically just background noise while people make their coffee and toast a bagel. But if they don't like the debate format, they don't have to watch that anymore. They're not locked in to network television. They can get a million different things from a million different sources. Yeah. If they still want live sports content in the morning that's a little bit more lighthearted and not so combative, they could throw on Pat McAfee. If they want something that's edited or pre-recorded that just kind of lives on YouTube, they can watch Tom Grossi's 30 and 30 series every morning. They can.
I find it so interesting what the fuck social media has done to a bunch of industries, because I think more than ever, and I don't know if shit is just all happening at once now, but I feel like monopolies are much, much harder to accomplish because of social media. I think social media gives us so much in terms of choices that, like, these problems arise. The movie Hollywood is going through the same problem when it comes to these high budget ass films. A lot of these films are not breaking even, if not profiting, but they're still spending a shit ton of money on them. You know what I'm saying? And then people are, and same thing with the music industry. That whole conversation about, rap, there hasn't been a number 1 rap album all year up until Uzi released the Pink Tape. But even still, like, that whole conversation about, like, rap just isn't number 1 anymore. Is rap dead? I don't think any of these things are dead. It's just the freedom of choice allows those middle class creators to rise up, and there's less importance on that, like, top level shit, in my opinion. That's just where I'm coming from, and I feel like that's what's happening in sports media as well. ESPN used to be just the only thing you can fucking watch. But now with social media, like what my guy here is talking about, you got the freedom of choice. Like, your attention doesn't all have to go to ESPN. It could be divided into so many other different avenues and areas. And you're just not forced to watch ESPN anymore. So taking it back to the rap conversation, I do not think rap is dead. I think it's far from it. I think the reason why the numbers are the way that they are is because of social media and how many choices that we have. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to watch what's just in theaters anymore. You can watch so many different IPs and shows now that it's affecting the top end. So
they can throw on Brandon Perna. They can watch The Pivot. They can watch Flemlow. If they want fantasy content, specifically like on-demand fantasy content, because they're getting ready for their drafts, they can watch the Underdog Fantasy channel. They can watch BDGE. If they want Madden content to get ready for the Madden release coming up, they can watch Bengal. Like, there's so many options now. They don't have to watch First Take if they don't want to watch First Take. This is not the 90s anymore. The audience is no longer captive. And I feel like it's taken a lot of legacy media outlets, in particular TV networks, it's taken them way too long to catch on to that fact. For the first time ever, ESPN has to truly convince sports fans to watch their content over the hundreds of other content creators now that are making stuff for free. They never had to do that before, and they've kind of had to change their entire content strategy as a result. And again, they're doing it a lot later than they should have, but I at least do want to give them credit for finally catching up. And everything that they've done over the last 3 weeks, by the way, in my opinion, is part of that new content strategy. ESPN is now kind of taking a step back, and they're not focusing so much on having the network brand be at the forefront, and instead they're letting individual talent brands take the spotlight. And here's what I mean by individual talent brands, by the way. Part of my job is trying to understand how people work, how they prioritize their time, how they make buying decisions, really how they make any decision. Because at the end of the day, my job through content creation is to try to convince you to spend as much time out of your day with me as I can, rather than spending it with ESPN. That is literally what my job is. I am competing for your attention.
Yeah.
And I can't compete for your attention without having a personal brand. I mean, 4 years ago, why do you think that I started going on camera all of a sudden? Like, I needed a differentiating factor for my brand. At the time, and even, you know, even more since then, there were a lot of channels popping up on YouTube, and it's just been kind of a growing category over the last several years. But there were a lot of channels that were popping up that were doing similar things to what I was doing, in the sense that we were all, you know, analyzing all 22 and kind of giving our takes based on tape study, and we were all just kind of doing like faceless voiceover, and they're all phenomenal. Like Alex Rollins is great, Sam Gold is great, Thinking Football, Billy Stevens. Like I watch all their stuff every single week. Like,
no way.
Coming out of UTSA to
I thought I was about to hear Ben Taylor chat. I thought I was about to hear Ben Taylor. And shout out to Ben Taylor, by the way. I know he's definitely football heavy, Brett. But no, that's funny.
Like it's a great group of people, but we all make very similar content, and all of our videos were kind of blending together, right? And I just had to differentiate myself somehow so that my brand would stick out amongst a lot of channels that were doing similar things. Hence, me going on camera. And to a degree, I do think that gambit did work. And I'll be honest, early on, I was terrified of being on camera. Like, I did not want to do it. I was extremely nervous. You know, hence why I oftentimes back then had a drink every single show, because I couldn't do it on camera without that. Like, I needed something to kind of like calm my nerves. And you know, obviously, I kind of kept that as part of my brand, right? Kind of, you know, having the.
Okay, Dwayne. And shout out to Dwayne, by the way. I don't know if you're watching, but okay, Dwayne. What?
Bar and whiskey and cocktails and everything be part of my episodes, but like literally the reason why that started was because I needed it to get through filming on camera. That was how nervous I was, but I had to do it.
I feel
it.
Do what
you gotta do.
I ain't gonna lie. Sometimes I go into a pod just needing an extra confidence boost, and you know about Honey Souls, but you know, sometimes I just be getting a drink. I'll be performing a little bit better. You know, it does calm my nerves. I'm not saying I'm relying on alcohol chat, so I get it. You know what I'm saying? So
to differentiate yourself and you know, build your brand, and I don't regret it at all. For all of the
I just chat. I just seen the backdrop. Yo, Chad, I just nah, this is a crazy backdrop right here, bro.
The newer creators that are watching this, so I'm gonna give like one piece of advice here. Your brand is not just what you make, it's how you make people feel when they watch what you make. So, you know, when I'm spending an entire day, you know, putting LEDs inside this cabinet and rigging up all these different lights and trying to get the exact right lens that I need and make this shot as good as I possibly can as like my home shot. I should draw up a picture here of like what this set actually
you know what I'm
looks
saying?
Like this is a set.
Who said it's
my
better
office,
though?
But it is a set because I'm trying to create a feeling when you watch my content, and that's what really builds a brand. Is it's not just making content, it's making your audience attribute a certain feeling to your content. If we look at the brands of not all, but like most debate show personalities, they're very animated. They can be very.
There's a thing to overproduction. I will say that. I think social media has definitely captured and perfected leading into relatability. Because the reality is, when you have these sports conversations, man, you wasn't in a suit and tie when you were at lunch. You know what I'm saying? You didn't have professional lighting when you were at lunch. You don't have to adhere to the FCC airways. You was cussing for real. Fuck KD. LeBron's a bitch. Respectfully, I'm just, you know, it was an example. But then when you go on these social these TV type shits, everything is just so proper. They got producers in the background, A to B, B to C. You know what I'm saying? They got cards on the screen. They got earpieces. But when it's just like a setting like this, where really the only thing that's crazy about my setup right now is the quality, and if anything, it adds to the immersion of it. Like, bro, you can see someone in their room with a camera just talking about sports. You know what I'm saying? So
very combative at times. Like, even though it's all a show, it's performance, right? It can be very combative. It can be contrarian for the sake of being contrarian. And the energy can get real negative sometimes. And sometimes it doesn't feel like it's all a show. And sometimes it does feel personal. Sometimes it does get personal. We saw what happened with Skip and Shannon, right? Like that started going from, haha, it's just a show, to they're legitimately insulting each other pretty darn quick. And then
I think that's the product, though, of whatchamacallit, doing shows too much. Like, when Undisputed is on, they're doing 2-hour shows 5 times a week. And I can only imagine, and apparently they have like a 3-hour pre-show leading up to the actual show. So it's really like 5 hours of just talking to dudes about sports 5 times a week. And even on Let's Keep It a Buck, we suffer it sometimes, because I'm not going to act like, and we don't have crazy people, but, we have arguments behind the scenes, healthy arguments, though, friendly arguments, business arguments type shit. But I feel like just being on air, unscripted, for the most part, unscripted live, having to talk about so much shit, when your job is dependent on ratings and how your show performs, like, you're gonna be forced to say some fucked up shit. You know what I'm saying? So I understand. I'm not trying to excuse it. It's more so just an explanation as to why they say the things that they do. You know what I'm saying? I think I feel like a better example would be like Player's Choice on YouTube. Like, them motherfuckers be talking about basketball so much that, like, certain clips that you guys see it as, yo, this motherfucker's going crazy over no reason. I think that low clip is a perfect example of, like, this 30-second segment got cut out of that podcast, and it looks crazy that Lowe is yelling about Kevin Durant like this. When in actuality, it was a lot of built-up shit because they stream so much, because Lowe talks about basketball so much, that you get to a point where you do get really mad about these fucking inconsistencies. You do really get animated about these conversations. But that's why it's like a byproduct of what the fuck is going on. That's why for these streams, I stream 3 times a week. I think 3 times a week right now is my max. If I'm really feeling it, I'll go 4. But it would be unfortunate if I really had to stream fucking 5 times a week for 5 days straight. So
that's what the brand of the show is, right? It's toxicity, it's anger, it's personal attacks. And there's very few people that actively feel good while watching that. And again, your brand is how you make the audience feel when they're watching your content. So again, if the majority of the sports fan audience doesn't feel good while they're watching your stuff because it's not a good vibe, they're going to go to social media to find something that does make them feel good. They're going to go to Pat McAfee's show. They're going to go to That's Good Sports. They're going to go to Flemlow. They're going to go to Foolish Baseball. Let's see, what's another one? They're going to go to Destroying, right? Like the Undercover One-on-Ones was one of the best videos, like most fun I've had watching a sports video in a long time. And that wasn't on a network. That was on YouTube. I mean, hell, for people that want just like pure X's and O's content, like the real nerdy shit, I would hope that they come to me because I make the type of content that I don't think you're going to see on TV that much.
I will say though, I disagree with his point that like people go on social media just to escape the toxicity. Because I'm just keeping it a bean. Content creators are also taking advantage of the toxicity to their favor. You know what I'm saying? It just depends on what you want out of your content. And again, that's the freedom of choice when it comes to social media. If you think like network TV is too PC, you can go to a platform that's less PC, that can talk about sports the way you want to talk about sports. If you think network television doesn't talk about sports enough and doesn't get to the nitty gritties, then you can go to a Thinking Basketball. Then you can go to a this, that, and the third. I just feel like right now we're in a really good place when it comes to sports media, where you have the choice to go to certain platforms for certain things. You know what I'm saying? And it's up to the content creators to fill voids within the industry. And it's working against ESPN because they just used to be the one-stop shop for everything. Now that people have the freedom of choice, and now that people have that freedom of choice for damn near free because everyone has internet and everyone has a fucking phone, now shit's getting really scary. Now shit is getting really scary.
Because it's really hard to make. And there's a lot of hours that go into it. And it's just not practical for a TV network to make the type of stuff that I make. And I use that to my advantage, because if they can't get it there, they're gonna come here. And that's what I'm counting on. When you watch one of my videos, you know that probably on average 50 to 80 hours, depending on the subject, went into the creation of that video. At least on the film study ones. This one's obviously going to take a lot less.
Holy shit.
But generally speaking, as much research as I physically can do has gone into every single video. And it's, me just pouring through playbooks, me pouring through tape, combing through data, sending late night text messages to my coaching buddies and asking very stupid questions and getting remarkably clear answers back that I then...
Hey, that's why I stopped doing like the analytical shit, man. Because again, the beauty is there's a lane for it, but the bar for being an analytical dude and this, just the floor of a analytical person being high is crazy. I'm not gonna lie. Like, it wasn't too long ago when the shit I was bringing up in 2017, 2018 was analytical. Like, I don't know if y'all like remember those debates in 2016, 2017, but you just being able to bring up someone's points per game off the dome at a specific year, or you being able to bring up someone's field goal percentage was like crazy. Oh, you know that motherfucker's field goal percentage, nerd? You fucking nerd? But now it's like, okay, you're only using field goal percentage? True shooting percentage. Effective field goal percentage. Like, nah, the bar for being an analytical person right now is just too high for me.
I have to find a way to translate into English so that I can properly explain, how this sport works to people that are just browsing YouTube on a Saturday night, right? And that takes a long time. And you know that every time you watch one of my videos, I am not just talking out of my ass. Like, that is my brand, is doing the work, doing the research. And even if my take is wrong, I have a reason for why I say what I say. And so even though my brand does not lead to a lot of volume in terms of posting, it does mean that every time I post, people come back because they know that I put in the work to say what I am saying, right? And that's a great spot, I think, for my brand to be. And that's exactly where I want it to be. I make content for nerds because I am a nerd. And my content will never be at the top of the sports media pyramid. And I'm totally okay with that. I don't want to be at the top of the pyramid. It's fucking lonely up there. I'd rather be down here on the bottom rung.
Hey, what'd Drake say? I know there's a Drake bar about that. You know what I'm saying? That is interesting though, because I feel like in any niche in social media, to be at the very top, to have like crazy numbers, you have to be an extreme person. And me, just naturally, I'm not an extreme person. You know what I'm saying? Like, to get to the levels of getting 1 million subscribers, I feel like you have to be a crazy extreme person. Like whether it's AMP, whether it's Sidemen, whether it's Mr. Beast, whether it's Casey Neistat, whether it's Marquez Brownlee. Like, you just got to do some extreme shit to get to that top. And that's why I commend those people as well. Because inherently to do extreme shit is hard. But at the same time, bro, it's like, I just be chilling, man. I don't know. Speed. I think to me, the goal, or like the one thing I really want to see within social media and content creation is what I call, I didn't make up the term, but the creator middle class, essentially. Like, if we can find and have more case studies and find an infrastructure, maybe as content creators, we should get unionized. I don't know what the fuck needs to happen. But I feel like if we can get to a point where it is normal for, number one, content creation to be a career path, and number two, for that to be like, for that to be a career that can last you up until retirement, and you don't have to be a millionaire type of youth. Like, I just know there are people who have a certain job and have survived making, relative to inflation, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year for the next 10 to 15 for 10 to 15 years up until retirement type shit. I know those jobs exist. But for content creation, we don't have a lot of those case studies. It's a lot of, did this guy make it big to the point where he became a millionaire? He didn't have to worry about, making $70K a year, and he had this extreme lifestyle, or you just didn't. Or you did get to a point where you was making 80 to 100K a year, but that shit really only lasted for 4 to 5 years, and then you had to pivot out. You either fell off the face of the earth and you're back with your parents, or like you just pivoted to another industry. You know what I'm saying? So that's really my fear with my career as well. I feel like I'm in a better position than a lot of YouTubers were when they were in my age, and how many years they put into the game with the amount of revenue streams that I have. But it's an interesting conversation, though. That I think that's the next level for content creation, in my opinion, for the whole industry. So,
with all the other nerds, so that we can just talk about football. Like, that's where I love to be, and I hope I stay here forever. Because the farther you get up the ladder, boy, the longer you can fall. So I'm good staying down here. Truly, I am. Now, transitioning over to the network side of things and how they are prioritizing these individual brands. One of their only shows that year over year is doing better every single season is NFL Live. And they probably make the closest thing, at least on TV, to the content that I try to make, right? Like, it's 4 smart football people talking about football. And I love that type of content. I watch NFL Live every single show because it's the only thing I truly enjoy watching on ESPN. And I do think that the reason why that show has been successful is because the individual brands of the people on that panel, whether it's RC, Mina, Swagoo, Dan, those individual brands cut through the noise of the ESPN corporate brand as a whole, and they draw people in, right? Like, they are an actual draw to get people to watch ESPN content. Like me. Like, I don't watch ESPN, but I watch NFL Live. And there's a lot of people like
why
me.
the fuck do y'all keep talking about Miles Turner? What are y'all doing? What the fuck?
Don't watch the network, but they watch that show. So when I say that ESPN is now prioritizing, individual, strong, personal brands, they're trying to get more people like the panelists on NFL Live. They're trying to get more Minas and Dans and Marcuses and RC.
Yeah, I think the future for ESPN, because the Dan Lebatards of the world, what they used to do was get writers who were good and give them their own show. That's not the case anymore. So like these I don't know if y'all like the whatchamacallit. Y'all know what I'm talking, like those shows I used to watch as a kid after First Take that weren't First Take, the PTIs of the world, the Dan Lebitard show, the whatchamacallit. What's that one with the button where like there's 4 panelists and Loki looked like StreamYard and they're like there was like a score, like that type of shit. I think those shows are long gone. If ESPN is going around the horn is exactly what the fuck I'm talking about. If ESPN is going to make shows moving forward, they're going to want a proof of concept essentially as to how much attention this shit is going to draw for them. You know what I'm saying? And I think that is going to come in the form of content creators. That's going to come in the form of people who have established personal brands. The draw is not ESPN just launching this new random ass show. The draw is going to be this existing IP that already has put in the work to have their own brand, to have their own big ass audience, is now going to be on our platform. I think that's what's going to happen.
Right? Because that is how they can try to draw sports fans back under their overall umbrella. And they're going to get those individual personal brands from outside of ESPN.
Yeah.
The people that have built those brands outside of their influence. They need to bring them back under the tent. That's why they're getting Pat McAfee. That's why I would bet a pretty good amount of money that they're at least exploring bringing in Shannon Sharp, because he is a huge personal brand in his own right. Like I'd bet there's some sort of deal on the table for them, getting Club Shay Shay, under ESPN, because that's a huge show in its own right. I would bet that within 5 years on Monday Night Football, in the pregame show, we're going to have Tom Grassi doing skits on the Monday Night pregame show. I'd bet that within 5 years, ESPN's draft coverage is going to have Destroying doing undercover one-on-ones with top receiver prospects.
My only doubt with that method, though, is because Spotify did it. And a lot of podcast companies, and honestly live streaming as well, did it with signing a bunch of creators onto their platform, thinking, yo, they have an existing audience. If we brought their audience over, it's just going to work out. Look up Spotify's relationship with Joe Rogan. Look up Spotify's relationship with Joe Budden. Look up a lot of these exclusivity deals and how they actually worked out for the company. It didn't work out the way that they think it would. And if anything, in hindsight, they probably would not have done those deals because it is not what they think is going to be. Is the same thing going to be for ESPN? Is the same problem going to arise for ESPN if they go this route? Maybe. I don't know. But we'll see. We'll see.
Because why wouldn't you? Like, that would be amazing content, not just on TV, but on social as well. I don't know why they haven't done it already, actually. And like, even me, like, my brand is nowhere near the size of Destroying, and it's nowhere near the size of Tom's. But like, I would love if one day one of these networks would let me do my own simulcasts for games, like on this channel, or maybe on the Bootleg channel with EJ, like whatever. Like, I would take anything I could get to be able to show an NFL game on YouTube, which now there's an NFL partnership with YouTube, so maybe it's more possible now than it was in the past. But I would love to be able to have a sanctioned simulcast of me getting to do color commentary while getting to show the game and being able to stream the game with my audience enjoying it with me.
Yo, bro, if the NBA allowed that on YouTube, we go to the top, Chad. I ain't gonna lie. God, listen. I know Chad's gonna bring up Playback.tv. I mean, Playback exists. And shout out to Playback. Shout out to the app. Shout out to the website. But yo, the discoverability of YouTube, content creators not needing to worry about you, come on, bro. We get to the bag for real if we can watch games on YouTube. Nah, bro. That'd be tough. And, Jesus Christ. Chad's talking about Kristaps versus Cat right now, bro.
I have no idea what type of legal mechanisms would have to be tripped for that to even be possible, but maybe one day it will be possible, and I can't wait for that day. So, if you're with ESPN or Amazon or NBC and you're watching this, what's up?
Type shit.
Shoot me an email. Love to hear from you. Look, sports media over the last 15, 16 years that I've been a part of it, in every role you can think of on both sides of the fence between old media and new media, it's changed a lot. The networks have changed, the content has changed, the people making the content has changed more than anything. Everything's different now, and I mean different in a good way.
Yeah.
The democratization of sports media is the best thing to happen to sports media ever, and it's certainly the best thing for the consumer. Bottom line, what all of those changes have led to are both the McAfee acquisition as well as the layoffs that ESPN went through. And it's not that it's two sides of the same coin, but they are two separate paths that ESPN is taking simultaneously to get to the same destination, which is ultimately profitability. Now, if you're a member of the sports media landscape at large, and I mean that in any context, doesn't matter how big your footprint is, whether you're working for yourself or working for somebody else, new media, old media, it doesn't matter. I would love to get your perspective on this down in the comments, because I think it's good to have an industry-wide discussion here, and I know a lot of you are watching this. So again, I would love to get your perspective down below. I see my camera's overheating, so I only have a few seconds left.
All right, I'm gonna cut you off there to save you, gang. Shout out to Brett Coleman for the video, by the way. Go ahead, check out his channel if you haven't already. But yeah, to me, the whole sports media conversation is so interesting. Number one, because I'm in it. Number one, and number two, I love sports, specifically the NBA. I ain't gonna say basketball, specifically the NBA. Yeah, man. If you want to get into this new sports media, I definitely think ownership is a really, really big thing for you guys. To me, the path is not trying to get hired by an ESPN anymore, by a Fox, a Fox Sports, or even working for a company like Barstool. I think those experiences will definitely give you some valuable experiences and lessons and shit like that. But in terms of sustainability within the industry, it's about creating your brand, in my opinion. Ultimately, like if you want to get a job somewhere so that you have something to support yourself, that's fine. I ain't tripping, but ultimately, like you gotta leverage that shit to your own shit. I think a perfect example of this is Chris next door. Shout out to Chris, by the way. Shout out to AMP Chris. But Chris's transition to being AMP's editor, to becoming an on-screen talent, to becoming becoming his own Twitch streamer, like a big Twitch streamer, has been fucking amazing. I ain't gonna lie. That shit is a beauty to see. You know what I'm saying? And even to a degree, like the shit I've been doing, cause when I first started working for Playback and Agent, this is why I always give Agent and Playback and Low their flowers, cause they really helped me out a lot when it comes to this content creation shit. Like, I'm gonna keep it a bean. Souls and Stage just started. Numbers were not looking too good. Let's Keep It a Buck was at most probably an extra $500 a month. So the leverage from, all right, I'm working with Playback, I'm working with Agent, they're giving me this knowledge, they're giving me this money that's gonna pay the bills right now, but on the back end, I'm gonna keep working on my shit to the point where now I'm just damn near working on my shit, and I've, if anything, taken a lesser role at playback as well compared to when I started. Shit is just working, man. Shit is just, you know, we're making moves out here. We're making moves out here, man. But yeah, shout out to Brett Coleman though. Shout out to Brett Coleman.